The student loan problem is a huge problem in America. And you hear about it in the news, and you hear about what the president might do about it. Is he going to extend the payment date? Is he going to cancel student loans? This is a huge issue. Now, if you're about to go to college, or you might be an adult looking at getting student loans, before you get student loans, watch this video and I'll tell you what I think about it. Student loans are a huge problem in America. That's an understatement to say that it's a huge problem. I mean, when I say problem, I mean that millions and millions of people in America have student loan debt. And that student loan debt is not small. For some people, they're well into their middle ages, 50s, 60s, even 70 years old, and they still haven't paid off their student loans. They're counting on the government, hopefully Biden, and before that, hopefully Trump, and before that, hopefully Obama, and whoever the next president is going to be. Every time there's a president, people are hoping, are they going to cancel student loans? Are they going to forgive all of the student loans that I have? Are they going to just magically disappear? And everybody's hoping that it does, okay? Because some people have so much student loans that it impedes their daily life. Like they can't buy a house because they have so much student loans. They can't afford to live beyond a small apartment when they have 3 kids and they need a bigger house. They just can't afford it. They can't afford to not work or work less hours because they have so much student loans. Some people who are eligible for Social Security, they get the student loans deducted from their Social Security checks because they still haven't paid off their student loans. Now, every year, I'm in the college prep consulting and SAT prep business. I'm in the education, sector. This is what I do. And every year I see students, parents mostly, decide for the kids that they're going to go off to some college out of state, some private school, and they're going to pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year to send their kids to school, and they're going to incur student loan debt. And so the kid, 22 years old, comes out of college, graduates from college, and gets a job for $80,000 a year, maybe 90, maybe on the high, maybe 100,000, and yet sometimes they have $300,000 of student loans. Now, some kids go off to graduate school, they go to dental school, they go to medical school, and I have known people personally who have only in their 30s who have $500,000 of student loans. I mean, when are they ever going to pay that off? And so this is a huge problem. It's so expensive to go to college, to go to graduate school, and yet people think that there's just no other way to get through it. I have to get student loans. Now, this is a self-inflicted wound here, okay? So I myself have gone to grad school, I have gone to college, and I have had student loans myself, okay? Not that big, but I know what it's like, and I understand this firsthand. But let me tell you that this is a self-inflicted wound. Now, if the government ends up, forgiving student loans, then I guess you're off the hook. But I wouldn't depend on the government doing that. This is not that easy for me to say when I know that if you're watching this, you might have a lot of student loans. But I gotta just say it. There's no other way to say this. If you have a lot of student loans, this is a self-inflicted wound. You brought it upon yourself, okay? This is not about blame. This is just about responsibility. No one forced you to get student loans. No one forced me to get student loans. I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew that going to grad school, and for me, it was in my 30s. I didn't have to go. I just wanted to go. I knew it would cost me tens of thousands of dollars. So I went back and got my MBA. Really for no other reason than I just wanted a graduate degree. I just always wanted one since I was in college, okay? So I got one, and it cost me $50,000. Now that's pretty cheap because when I went to grad school at Johns Hopkins University, they had just begun their real MBA program, and so I got in on the cheap end, and it was only like I say only, but relatively cheap, but I think it was like $300 a credit or something like that. And then in midstream, they increased the tuition a lot. And so I ended up paying about $50,000, out of my own pocket. I paid this, but and I incurred a little bit of student loan debt, and I paid it. But so I'm just saying that to say I know what it's like to have student loans. I understand that process. Okay, but when you go to college and you're going to college and you have the option. Now, a lot of times graduate school, you don't have an option. Like if you go to med school or dental school, there's really not an option, okay? But you just have to know that going in, how much student loan debt you're gonna incur, okay? But I guess when it comes to undergrad, let me talk primarily to the undergraduate situation and people going into college. You don't have to get student loans. Let me make this very simple. I made several videos about this before, but let me just give you very. You don't have to get student loans to go to college, okay? Now, some people might say, yes, I do. If I'm going to go to Columbia University, if I'm going to go to Case Western University, if I'm going to go to UVA and I live in Maryland, whatever, I need student loans. I can't afford it. What I'm saying is, you don't have to go to that school. There are ways that you can go to college and graduate from college without incurring any student loan debt. So let me go over this, and I've gone over it before, but let me just go over it again because I think this is very important, okay? So what are the steps to going through college and getting through college with zero or almost zero student loans? This is how you do it. It's very simple, okay? Number one, you go to a public school that is within commuting distance from your house, okay? So where I live here, there are many schools, okay? I live in Baltimore City, so there are schools here like Towson University, Loyola, Goucher College, Stevenson University, UMBC, University of Maryland College Park, Johns Hopkins University, Morgan State, Notre Dame of Maryland University. These are all schools. Besides College Park is about a little over an hour, but all the other schools I named are all within like a 20-minute drive, okay? But even if you lived in a different county, there are always, I don't want to say always, there are almost always schools in which you can commute to, okay? Now, if you live in, let's say, Northern Virginia, and the closest school is 3 hours away, you can't commute to that. But even in Northern Virginia, I mean, there are schools, right? There's schools in DC that are closer. There's George Mason University. It's just that people don't want to go to these schools, but there are ways. So you can so step one is to go to a school that you can commute to from your house, okay? Now, why do I say commute? Why not live in the dorm? Because it's going to cut your college expenses by almost 50%. In some cases, 50%, okay? So you'll only pay half of what you would normally pay if you commute from home rather than going to the dorm and living in the dorm and paying for the meal plan at school. You'll pay half the cost, okay? So that's number one. Second is rather than getting student loans, you work, let's say 15 to 20 hours a week, part-time. Now, by this time, you're 18 years old. You're a full-blown adult. You can work almost anywhere, and you can work at Starbucks, at Target, at Costco, you name it. You can work. You can even work on campus, and you can work 15 to 20 hours a week, perhaps, and make some money. And during winter or summer break or winter break, whatever, you can work more, okay? And so if you do that, I think students, college students, can easily make $8,000, maybe even $10,000 a year, okay, doing that. This part-time. And with that money, you don't go buy a car, you don't do anything like that. You pay your tuition, okay? And if you do this, and if you take smaller credits, so instead of taking 21 credits, which is pretty crazy in college, you take, let's say, 14. The less credits you take per semester, the less it will cost. And so you take it a little bit slower. Maybe you graduate in 4.5 years, maybe even 5 years instead of 4 years. Now, I know the objections. As I'm making this video, I can almost hear the objections going on, okay? Here are the objections I hear all the time when I say this. Well, I want to go to a good school, though. I want to have a successful career, so I don't want to go to this college. Rather than going to George Mason, I want to go to UVA. Rather than going to UMBC, I want to go to Carnegie Mellon, okay? So what do I think about this? Okay, this is not my personal opinion about this. Let me tell you. What I'm about to say is backed up not only by evidence in salaries and studies based on college name and eventual salaries and people's careers and so forth. I've seen it. I was in the corporate world. I worked in the corporate world for many years. And I worked in big global conglomerates. I've worked for smaller companies, big federal agencies, city government agencies. I've worked in a lot of different positions and met a lot of different people and worked with a lot of people from a lot of different schools. And I can tell you that I have seen no correlation between what school you went to and your career success. The career success that you will have in your life will be based on how good you are at what you do, period. It will not be based on what school you went to. In fact, I see the other way around. I see people who went to these big name schools, okay? And they're just not given any special preferential treatment. And so I see a lot of these people just disappointed in their careers. Man, I thought I was going to get, preferential treatment when I got into a company, but, they treat me like everyone else. Well, of course they would. It's not based on what school you went to. It's based on your performance, how good you are at what you do. So that's why I think the school name, the school ranking is overrated. Okay, number one. Number two, people say, yeah, but I don't want to commute from home. Why? Because I want to get the full college experience, people say. I want to get the college experience. My parents want me to get the college experience. I don't know exactly what that means, college experience, okay? I mean, I know what that means. I know what you mean by that. But let me tell you this. When I was in college, 2 years I did live in the dorms, and 2 years I commuted from home. I've done both, okay? And like I said, the last 14 years, I've been doing the college consulting, SAT prep, college prep business. I've seen hundreds of my students go to college, hundreds of my students graduate, hundreds of them go on to their careers and so forth. I've seen the whole picture, and I lived it myself. And let me tell you, when I commuted or when I lived in the dorm for 2 years, I got the quote college experience. But when I commuted for the last 2 years of my college life, I also got the college experience. The only difference was where I slept. Did I sleep in my own bed at home, or did I sleep in this prison, cell-looking little dormitory bed in my dorm? Okay, there's nothing glorious about college dorms. Usually they suck. Okay, they're not glorious by any means. All right, any college student who lives in a dorm will tell you this. But I would go to school. I arrived at school sometimes 7:30 in the morning, and sometimes I would stay at school. This is when I'm commuting, and I would stay at school for sometimes until midnight. Sometimes when we had team meetings and stuff, because believe it or not, in colleges you have those too. And my third year and so forth, I had team meetings and stuff. We had to do some group projects, and so I was at school until 1 in the morning. Sometimes I get home at 2 o'clock. So I'm at school all day. I eat breakfast at school. I eat lunch at school. I eat dinner at school. And sometimes, a lot of times I brought a packed lunch. And so I got the full college experience. So when people say, oh, I have to live in the dorm to get the full college experience, that's just not true. Now, even if that were true, I would say this. It's not that important. Okay, it's not worth getting $100,000, $200,000 into debt for. It's not worth it. It's better to commute from home, not get the quote college experience, even if there were such a thing, and you just, you're financially much better off when you're 22 years old. You have zero student loans, trust me. Okay, if you have $200,000, $100,000 in student loans when you graduate college, you will regret it. That's not a very good start to your financial, financial journey, your career path. It's not a good start to your career. So those are some of the objections that I hear. Now, another objection might be, well, if I get some student loans, I'll just get a high-paying job and I'll just pay it off real quick. Okay. Well, if that were that easy, why wouldn't everybody, millions and millions of Americans, just pay it off? You'll see when you get there. When you start making money, when you go out, you got an apartment, you got a car, you got rent, you got this, you got that, you got these things, and you got money going out. And you think you're making a lot of money. So you graduate college, and man, but my starting salary is like $90,000. Pretty good, huh, Mr. Kim? Yeah, it's good. It's good. $90,000, but it's not really $90,000, is it? Okay? You take 35% off of that or so for taxes, and you get what's left over. Divide by 26 because usually you get paid bi-weekly, and then you look at your paycheck, you're like, oh, that's all I'm bringing? I didn't know I'd bring home so little. Yeah, okay? It's not 90,000 divided by 12 and you get that every month. It's 90,000, you take 35 or 40% off of that for taxes, and then whatever's remaining, you divide by 26, and that's what your paycheck usually is going to be. But again, it's not like that is You got to pay rent. You got to pay for your car loan. If you have a car loan, you're paying for car loan. You're paying for gas. You're paying for maintenance. You're paying for, your insurance on your car. You're paying. You got to eat. You got to pay for food. You have to buy clothes. You're going to entertain yourself, and you got all these obligations, and then you're going to pay student loans. So paying student loans, the minimum amount, it's going to take you a minimum of 10 years. No wonder people don't pay that off. And then you have the option of sort of delaying the payments. Okay, so that's an option. So a lot of people take it. I'll pay it in 5 years. So let me just, I'm not going to do it right now. And then they get into this thing, and before you know it, you're 40 years old. You still have student loans. This is reality. This is what happens. And I'm here to tell you, don't make that mistake. You don't have to make that mistake. If you're a high school student going to college, if you're the parent of a high school student and about to send your kid to college, and you're in this hype mode about, oh, my kid got into this private school out of state, and I don't care how much it costs, I'm going to send them there. We don't have the money, but we're going to get student loans, and we'll figure it out somehow. Okay? This just figure it out somehow thing doesn't work. I would send them to a local public school that's commutable. I would have them work part-time, and I would take fewer credits, and I would graduate debt-free. That is the exact thing that I will do with my kids, and that is the exact thing that I tell parents. Now, if you are a parent, or if you have parents who have a lot of money, and I have some of my students' parents many are in this situation in which money is not an issue. Okay, as long as they get it, we'll pay for it. We don't need financial aid. We got it. We got a lot of money. That's fine. I'm not talking to those people. I'm talking to people who need to go into debt to send their kids to school. I'm talking about students who need to go into debt in order to graduate from school. You don't have to do that, okay? But if you do this, if you've heard this and you still do this, and you're 30 years old and you're 40 years old and you're blaming and you're crying about, I got so much student loans, remember that it's a self-inflicted wound. Nobody forced you to do that. You could have prevented it. I was here to tell you so that you didn't get into that situation, so you wouldn't have to have that regret. But you chose to do that anyway. I hope you don't, okay? I hope you don't. And I hope that you'll start off your career path in a much stronger financial position by having no student loan debt. And so I feel very strongly about this. And, if you're in a family where you have to go into debt, you think you have to go into debt to go to college, I'm here to tell you there are ways that you don't have to. So please, don't go into debt. You don't have to do that. College costs are just so ridiculously high. I wouldn't pay it, and I would find ways, like I said, to get through it without any student loans. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.